Sometimes we go through phases in life where we feel like we have no one around us, no friends, no companions, nobody to turn to for a simple conversation. For a woman, this can be particularly heavy. Society places great emphasis on social circles, friendships, and networks, and when that is missing, the feeling of being left out or even unwanted can settle deep within the heart. But my beloved sister in Islam, do not let that make you think any less of yourself. In fact, it may be that this loneliness is not a punishment, but a hidden gift from Allah. In Islam, solitude is not something to be ashamed of. It is not a sign of weakness, nor is it a curse. Rather, it can be a sacred opportunity, a time where you can rediscover yourself, and more importantly, reconnect with your Creator in a deeper way. You see, when you don't have distractions around you, when there are no conflicting opinions, no comparisons, no judgments, you begin to hear the voice of your soul. You begin to recognize what truly matters. Take a moment and think about the people around us. Many people have crowds of friends, but still feel empty inside. Many have followers on social media, but they go to sleep with anxiety and tears. True peace does not come from being surrounded by people. It comes from being connected to Allah. And sometimes, Allah removes the people from our lives so we can finally pay attention to Him. When you find yourself alone, do not think you are abandoned. In fact, this may be the time when Allah is inviting you to His special company. The Prophet Muhammad used to seek solitude in the cave of Hira before prophethood. He would spend nights in reflection, away from the chaos of society. And it was during that solitude that the revelation came. That sacred moment, the beginning of the Quran, didn't happen in a crowd. It happened when the heart was ready, in the stillness, in the silence. Solitude can help a woman recognize her worth, not in the eyes of people, but in the sight of Allah. You are not defined by how many friends you have, or how many people call you on your birthday. You are defined by your connection with your Lord, by the purity of your intentions, by the strength of your character, and by the sincerity of your actions. This time of solitude can be a time of building, not breaking. Use it to draw nearer to the Quran. You will find it speaks directly to your heart. You will find verses that remind you, do not grieve. Indeed, Allah is with us. Surah At-Tawbah 9:40. When the Prophet was in the cave with Abu Bakr, our race surrounded by enemies, that was a moment where fear could have taken over. But what did the Prophet say? Do not be sad. Allah is with us. This statement is enough for any believer. Allah is with you. What more do you need? Take this time to learn, to grow, to pour your energy into becoming the woman you want to be. Wake up for tahajjud. Whisper your pain to Allah. Read His book, not just for reward, but for healing. Start journaling your thoughts, your goals, your du'as. You will look back one day and realize that this time of loneliness was actually your time of rebirth. You were not alone. You were just in the arms of divine protection. Also remember that just because you don't have friends now, doesn't mean it will stay that way. Life is constantly changing. Allah may be protecting you from people who would harm your peace or shake your faith. And when the time is right, He will send those who match your values, who uplift your iman, and who remind you of Jannah. Until then, be patient and trust that Allah is enough. My sister, the woman who walks alone with Allah is stronger than the one who walks with a crowd without direction. So hold your head high, smile, even in solitude, and know that this phase of your life, though it may feel lonely, is part of your journey to becoming closer to the one who never leaves. When we think of women who went through immense trials yet remained steadfast, one of the greatest examples in the Quran is Mariam, peace be upon her. Her story is one of solitude, strength, and complete reliance upon Allah. For any woman who feels isolated or without friends, her life is a powerful reminder that being alone does not mean being abandoned. In fact, sometimes being alone is exactly when Allah honors you the most. Mariam was chosen by Allah above all the women of the world. The Quran says, "And when the angel said, 'O Mary, indeed Allah has chosen you and purified you, and chosen you above the women of the worlds,'" Surah Al-Imran 342, this was not just an honor, it was a divine appointment. But with this honor came tests that she had to face largely on her own. And it is through these tests that we learn how solitude, when embraced with faith, can become a path to elevation in the sight of Allah. Mariam was raised in a life of worship. Even as a young girl, she dedicated herself to the worship of Allah in the sanctuary, far from distractions. Imagine that, a young woman, secluded, devoting herself to her Lord, while other girls her age might have been engaged in worldly affairs. She wasn't surrounded by a large group of companions. She wasn't the center of social circles, but she was at peace in the company of Allah. Then came her greatest trial, when she conceived Isa, without any man touching her. This was a miracle, but also a test of patience and dignity. She withdrew even further from the people during this time, alone, young, pregnant, and bearing the weight of a divine miracle. Who would understand her? Who would support her? No one. And yet, she didn't run to people, she ran to Allah. In Surah Mariam, Allah describes how she retreated to a remote place. When labor began, she was under a palm tree, overwhelmed and in pain. She cried out, "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten." Surah Mariam 19:23. Even the strongest feel weak sometimes, even the most righteous have moments of fear and distress. But what happened next? Allah comforted her directly. He provided for her fresh dates from the tree and a stream of water. He reassured her heart. This is what happens when a believer, even in isolation, keeps their faith firm. Allah takes care of them in ways no human being can. So when you, as a woman, feel like no one understands you or that you are going through something completely alone, remember Mariam. Remember that some of the most beautiful souls in Islamic history were shaped in solitude. Their strength came not from having a crowd behind them, but from having Allah beside them. Mariam didn't spend her time wishing she had more friends. She spent her time in worship, in dhikr, and in submission. And through that, Allah gave her strength, honor, and a legacy that will last until the end of time. Her story is not about weakness, it's about power, quiet power, the kind that comes from trusting Allah even when the world doesn't make sense. So if you find yourself without friends, know that you are not less than anyone else. You are not forgotten. Allah knows your name. Allah sees your tears. Allah hears the prayers you don't even have the words for. And if He could bring comfort to Mariam under the shade of a palm tree all alone, He can surely bring peace to your heart too. Take this time to turn inward. Seek knowledge. Build your connection with the Quran. Strengthen your character. Don't worry about being seen by people. Worry about being seen by Allah, because that is the true measure of success. Mariam didn't seek fame or attention. She simply submitted to the will of her Lord, and through that she earned eternal honor. And always remember, Allah only tests those He loves. Solitude can be a space for transformation, for healing, for reconnecting with your true self, away from the noise of the world. If Allah chose Mariam to go through solitude and difficulty and raised her rank so high, then maybe, just maybe, your loneliness right now is not a curse, but a calling. A calling to rise, a calling to trust, a calling to grow closer to the one who never leaves. In today's world, the word friendship is used loosely. We call many people our friends, school friends, work friends, online friends, but how many of them are actually good for our hearts, our character, and most importantly, our faith? Islam does not emphasize having many friends. Rather, it teaches us to seek righteous company, people who remind us of Allah, who uplift our iman, and who walk with us toward goodness. This difference is crucial, especially for a woman who finds herself without friends and wonders if she is missing something essential. The truth is, not everyone who smiles at you has a pure heart. Not everyone who sits next to you in class or at work is meant to be part of your journey. And not everyone who calls themselves your friend is sincere. This is why the Prophet Muhammad warned us about the influence of companionship. He said, "A person is upon the religion of his close friend, so let one of you look at whom he befriends." Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi. This means the people closest to us shape our thoughts, our behavior, and even our akhirah. If you are not surrounded by righteous people, maybe that is Allah's mercy protecting you from harm that you cannot see right now. Many women find themselves feeling lonely because they don't fit in with the crowd. They may dress modestly when others do not. They may avoid gossip, stay away from backbiting, and be serious about their deen, while others are lost in the trends of this dunya. But remember, the one who holds firm to their faith in a time of trials is beloved to Allah. The Prophet described the end of times as a period when holding on to the religion will be like holding on to hot coal. So if you're finding it hard to connect with others because of your values, don't feel down. It means your priorities are aligned with Allah, and that is a sign of strength, not weakness. Sometimes, a woman may find herself surrounded by people who drain her energy, make her question her self-worth, or lead her towards sinful habits. Maybe they're always talking about others behind their backs, pushing her toward disobedience, or making her feel like she has to change to be accepted. In that case, being alone is far better. The Prophet said, "The example of a good companion and a bad one is like that of the seller of musk and the blacksmith. The seller of musk will either give you some perfume, or you buy some from him, or at least you enjoy a good smell. But the blacksmith will either burn your clothes, or you will get a bad smell from him." Bukhari, Muslim. This shows that your surroundings matter. Your environment influences your soul. And if you are not finding righteous companions right now, staying alone and connected to Allah is the safer path. Quality over quantity. This is what Islam teaches when it comes to friendship. Even if you have just one sister in faith who reminds you of Allah, prays with you, shares knowledge, and advises you sincerely, that is a blessing greater than 100 so-called friends who distract you from your purpose. The companions of the Prophet used to value this kind of companionship deeply. They would love each other for the sake of Allah, not because of worldly interest. Their friendships were built on mutual support, love, and the goal of reaching Jannah together. So to the woman who has no friends, know this: maybe you don't have the wrong company because Allah is preparing you for the right one. Perhaps your current isolation is a test to teach you patience, to help you grow stronger in your deen, and to make you realize that real companionship begins with yourself and your Lord. And when you are ready, Allah will bring people into your life who are right for your soul, not just your social life. Until then, focus on being that righteous person yourself. Read the Quran, learn the Sierra, join gatherings of knowledge when you can, even if it's online. Engage with content that increases your iman, and make dua, da te relao, sincere dua bolo, that Allah grants you righteous companions. The Prophet said, dua is the weapon of the believer. Your loneliness today may be transformed by a single sincere supplication. So don't be ashamed of not having many friends. Be proud that you are protecting your soul from harmful influences. A woman who walks alone but remains upright is more honored in the sight of Allah than one who walks with many but forgets her values. Stay firm, stay hopeful, and trust that Allah is guiding your path, even in the silence. There is a beautiful comfort in knowing that even when the world turns its back on you, Allah never does. For a woman who finds herself with no friends, who sits in silence while others share laughter in groups, who longs for companionship but finds only her own shadow, it can feel lonely. But that loneliness is never complete, because the believer is never truly alone. Allah is always near. The Quran reminds us, and we are closer to Him than jugular vein. Surah Kaf 50:16. This is not a metaphor. It is a reality. The one who created you is always close, even when everyone else feels far. When people aren't there to listen, Allah is. When there's no one to text, no one to meet for coffee, no one to understand what you're going through, Allah still understands. He knows what's in your heart before you speak it. He sees the tears you wipe away quietly. He hears the dua you whisper under your breath. And He never gets tired of hearing from you. In fact, the more you speak to Him, the more He loves you. Unlike people who get annoyed or distracted, Allah welcomes every single one of your prayers, your questions, your hopes. This is what makes turning to Allah such a powerful comfort. When the soul is empty, no friend can fill it. No outing, no compliment, no social event can truly satisfy the heart the way a sincere connection with Allah can. That is why the Prophet Muhammad would turn to prayer in times of sadness. He didn't drown his pain in distractions. He stood before his Lord and cried, even though he had companions, even though he had the love of his family and followers. His heart was most at peace when it was closest to Allah. If you are a woman without friends right now, this may be your golden opportunity to build that same closeness. Talk to Allah often, not only in your formal prayers, but during the day, while you're cooking, while you're walking, even before you sleep. Share your heart. Tell Him what hurts. Ask Him to guide you. Ask Him to send the right people into your life. Ask Him to make you content even if no one ever comes. You'll find that the more you turn to Him, the less you'll feel the need for others to fill that space. Spend time with the Quran. It is not just a book. It is your companion, your source of comfort. The Quran is alive with meaning, and it speaks to those who seek its guidance. Read it slowly. Reflect on its words. You'll be amazed at how verses suddenly match your exact feelings. It's as if Allah is speaking to you directly, and in truth, He is. One of His names is As-Sami, the all-hearing. He hears what's not even said. So imagine the power of turning to Him with a heart full of longing and pain. He will respond. Make dhikr your routine. The simple act of saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, and Allahu Akbar can transform your emotional state. The Prophet said, "The comparison of the one who remembers Allah and the one who does not is like the living and the dead." Bukhari. When your tongue is moist with the remembrance of Allah, your soul feels alive, even if the world feels silent. And remember, your worth is not tied to your social status. A woman who has no friends but constantly connects with Allah is far more honorable than one who is popular but spiritually empty. On the Day of Judgment, it won't matter how many people knew your name, it will matter how often you remembered the name of Allah. This phase of solitude might not last forever. Maybe one day, Allah will send you a righteous friend, someone who makes you feel seen, supported, and understood. But until then, embrace this chapter. It's not a pause in your life. It's a preparation. Perhaps Allah is strengthening your heart now, so you don't become dependent on people later. Perhaps He is drawing you close now, so you can remain firm when the world becomes unstable. The closest companionship you will ever have is with the one who never leaves. So if you find yourself walking alone, walk with your head high and your heart full of faith. You are not truly alone. The King of the heavens and the earth is with you, closer than you think. In a world where value is often measured by social approval, the number of friends one has, likes on a post, or invitations to gatherings, it's easy to feel unworthy when you're not surrounded by people. For a woman who finds herself without friends, this can weigh heavily on the heart. But Islam teaches us something very different, something far more powerful and eternal. Your worth is not defined by how many people know you, but by how well Allah knows you and how sincere your heart is toward Him. It is human nature to want connection, to feel seen and appreciated. But when this desire becomes tied to people's opinions, we lose sight of the most important connection, the one with our Creator. Allah does not look at your social circle, your clothes, your wealth, or your popularity. The Prophet Muhammad said, Allah does not look at your appearance or your possessions. Rather, He looks at your hearts and your deeds. Muslim, this hadith alone should fill your heart with peace, because it means that even if the world overlooks you, the one who matters most sees everything. Every silent effort, every sincere intention, every hidden struggle. Society may tell you that being alone is a sign of failure, but the Quran tells a different story. It speaks of prophets and righteous women and men who were often alone, not because they were unworthy, but because their mission, their sincerity, and their purity set them apart. Mariam, as mentioned earlier, was alone during one of the greatest trials of her life. Yusuf was alone in the well and later in prison. Ibrahim stood alone against an entire nation. And yet, their solitude was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of their strength, and Allah raised their ranks because of it. Your value in Islam is rooted in taqwa, God consciousness. Allah says in the Quran, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." Surah Al-Hujurah 49:13. Not the most popular, not the most sociable, not the one with the most followers, but the one who fears Allah, who remembers Him in private, who tries to obey Him even when no one is watching. This means that even if you're sitting alone in your room, making sincere dua, holding back from sin, or helping others quietly, you are more honored in Allah's eyes than someone who is praised by people but forgets their Lord. Sometimes, Allah removes people from our lives to teach us that we don't need them to feel worthy. We only need Him. When you have no one to rely on, you learn to rely on Allah. And when your heart finds strength in that reliance, you become unshakable. You don't need constant validation from others to feel whole. Your self-worth becomes rooted in your identity as a servant of Allah, and there is no title more noble than that. It's also important to reflect that not all friendships are beneficial. Many people are surrounded by companions who distract them from their faith, who lead them towards sin, or who only remain close when things are easy. If Allah has not placed such people in your life, that's not a loss, that's protection. Allah knows what you don't. He knows who would have broken your heart, corrupted your values, or led you away from Him. So instead of questioning your worth because of your solitude, see it as a time of divine shielding. Allah is preserving you, preparing you, and perhaps saving you from something far worse. Take this time to focus on who you are becoming. Build your knowledge, grow your iman, and develop your character. Be the woman who stands in prayer while others are sleeping. Be the woman who holds her tongue while others gossip. Be the woman who is kind, even when no one is watching. These are the qualities that raise your value in the sight of Allah. And that is the only measure that matters. One day, when the time is right, Allah may send people into your life who match your sincerity, who love you for His sake, and who remind you of Him. But until then, know that you are already valuable, already seen, already loved by the one whose love never fades. You don't need the world to see you. You only need to remain sincere to the one who created your heart. So never think that being without friends means you are any less. Your silence, your patience, your effort, your connection to Allah, all of it is seen and all of it matters more than you realize. Stay strong, stay sincere, and know that your worth is already written with the most merciful.